I found myself in a unique situation last winter of deciding if it was time to pursue my dream of playing in the NFL. In order to fully understand my decision to return to Nebraska, you have to know who I am and where I come from. To pursue that dream early would have been breaking my family's tradition of completing our college education. When looking at it from that perspective, the choice was made for me. I've come to realize that life is bigger than football, and that my chances of long-term success in life will be greatly enhanced by completing my college education. It is truly an honor to play for this program, to represent the end, and to one day walk across that stage with my diploma in hand. I'm Ray Abdullah, and I play for Nebraska.
And good morning, everyone. This is Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty Fantasy Football subreddit's dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF_Marine and on Twitter at DrewDodsonNFL. And with me is my co-host, David. You can find him on Reddit at NTux96 or at DynastyDaveII. That little video we started with is a nice little teaser for something we're going to be talking about later in the show, and we're glad to be back this week. It's week 2 of our first year of the podcast, I guess.
Episode number 2.
2 weeks
number
straight.
8. But anyways, I think, well, of course, you can find me over on Reddit at mtux96 or on Twitter at DynastyDaveII. I'm not sure if he mentioned that or not. I was drifting off. But anyways, I kind of like to start off this one with explaining on how I use advice. I'm not like the pro talent scout wannabe that my co-host wants to be, but I'm just taking a different career choice.
I know he wants because I'm better than you, and I know it.
He wants to be the scout. I typically, the way I use advice is I like to just read, and then just use those opinions to basically try to get to where my opinion is going to be at. I know a lot of people, if you read a lot of forums and so forth, a lot of those people might not give the best advice, but some people might actually give the greatest advice. I'm kind of meld them all together and see what really is the truth for me, and I pretty much go with that. And of course, the other thing I look at is, okay, what players do I like? What players do I want to put in my roster? What are my favorite players that I like? Because I'd rather win with players I like rather than win with players I don't like. Mainly because this is my team. I want to build it how I want to build it. Of course, that way might actually not be the best at sometimes, but there's a little mix that you got to put in there as well. I mean, I might have some players I just don't like, but I'm kind of little. When I do have them on my roster, I'm like, do I really want to play them because I really don't like them? But that's pretty much how I kind of go with my thought process a lot of the times in Dynasty and Fantasy Football, week in and week out.
I absolutely agree. As much as you want to make it sound like I'm some sort of smarty pants, I'm constantly reading too. Listen to the smart people. DLF podcast, Under the Helmet podcast, Dynasty Football. Get in as many informed opinions as you can. Go into there with your own opinion. Watch film, use metrics, do it. Use whatever you want to use to find a basis for your opinion, and see how their opinion compares to yours. See if if the consensus between all these professional writers is that you're wrong. Go back and evaluate your process. See if see what you might have missed, or watch it play out and see if you get to end up being right. But it's all about constantly evaluating your process, how you got to whatever decision you made, whether it was a player evaluation, whether it was even like a weekly start. Excuse me. Whether it was a weekly start, what wide receiver do I want to start? Whatever your process was. Go back and constantly evaluate that, and don't stagnate. Try and constantly improve yourself. And reading and taking in as many opinions and as many just thought processes as you can is the best way to do that.
Yep. But talking about constantly changing, I think we could probably do this to segue into our next segment, talking about players. Talking about constantly changing, I kind of want to speak about Zach Stacy, the star of last year. Going into this year, we're like, he's gonna do okay, and now look at him. He didn't even play in week 7 for the most part, even though he was there. I think the rise of Trey Mason is probably pushing him down to where you might not even want him anymore. But I think so far, I mean, yeah, he didn't play week 7. I think you might still want to hold on to him, but I just don't think he's going to be the player you really want anymore as going forward from here.
Completely agree. He played 1 snap the entire game, had 0 carries. I think the writing's pretty clear that Zach Stacy is yesterday's news. I think Trey Mason is going to see the bulk of the carries, and Benny Cunningham is going to be used somewhat as a pass catcher in a passing down role, especially while Trey Mason is developing his pass blocking. But I think Zach Stacy's kind of the odd man out at this point. And if there's a hot waiver wire pickup, if you're in shorter rosters, and there's if there's better players on the waiver wire, I'd be okay with dropping him at this point. I'm in a salary cap league. I've got him for a decent chunk of cash, and I'm waiting for any player to show up that I want so I can drop him.
At this point, if you could trade him, but I had one person in my league trying to trade him, like, no, I don't want him. Why would I want him? Basically, I'm like, why would I have him on my roster when I have other running backs that I want on my roster? I think for the most part, I think he's at this time maybe droppable until he shows something that maybe the Rams maybe are just not showing us. I know the NFL trading deadline is coming up, and maybe there's rumors of St. Louis trade with some team, maybe actually involves Zach Stacy, where maybe actually bring him to a team that he is going to be viable for fantasy. But at this point, until that happens, I don't see it happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, if he goes somewhere else and gets a starting opportunity, and he's going to be the every down back, he's worth owning. He's going to be worth owning just based on volume, but that same volume is the only reason he had any volume in St. Louis last year. So if you're holding on to him based on the fact that you think he's this, this world-beating talent, I think the fact that he's not playing is proof that that's not the case.
Yeah, that does speak volumes. Where the Rams aren't playing him, that means he's basically moving forward. Which, speaking of moving forward, I think we could talk about my second player on the list is Christine Michael, a player I picked up actually in one of my leagues, 10th pick in the first round last year, and I kind of been holding him off, and I'm kind of just getting off the train on that one. I'm like, do I really want to continue owning him? I mean, is he really going to be the heir apparent to Marshawn Lynch, which I'm having my doubts now because basically Turbin's been in there, basically relieving Marshall from most of it, and Turbin's actually been doing pretty decently, although it's still Marshawn's role over there in Seattle. I'm kind of not seeing any role right now for Michael because he's basically sitting on the sidelines and Seattle is not playing him for some whatever odd reason. and I'm kind of having my doubts on whether he's going to be a star in the future, although it's still early in his career.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Shut
That's
up.
fine.
Shut up. I own quite a few shares of Christian Michael, and I still like him a good deal. I think the fact that he's not playing, there's no concrete evidence that this is the fact, but I think the reason Turbin is playing over him is that Turbin plays the role of a third down back better. The fact that he can spell Marshawn Lynch better, whereas Christian Michael is kind of projects more as that every down back, kind of to replace Marshawn Lynch. I do agree that it's getting a little sketchier. I'm not feeling as confident with my shares as I was before, but until he gets on the field and proves that he can't play in the league, I'm going to go ahead and continue to hold. At this point, a lot of people are going to be off the Michael boat, and you're not going to get anything for him if you're trading him anyways. So if you believed in him in the first place, you might as well hold him. Marshawn Lynch has a $7 million cap hit next year, and it's only $2 million in dead money if they cut him. So more than likely he's going to be a cap casualty, especially considering that they have to make room for Bobby Wagner and Russell Wilson's new contracts. So we could easily see Michael and Turbin duking it out for the starting role next year. And I would rather hold on to him and just see what happens. And this is by no means a dig on Robert Turbin either. I think Robert Turbin is a more than capable running back. He kind of reminds me of Michael Turner when he was playing in San Diego. He wasn't a world beater. He wasn't going out there and tearing it up every day, especially when you got somebody like LT in front of you. But he went somewhere else. He went to Atlanta, and he had a lot of fantasy relevance in Atlanta. And I think we could be looking at the exact same thing with Turbin if Michael does happen to break out. So even if Michael breaks out, I would hold on to your Turbin shares because free agency's coming, and he's gonna get a role somewhere. And I think Dave might be frozen up because he's not moving. All right. Well, that's all right because it's my turn to bring up some players, and my first guy is Justin Hunter, who he hasn't performed in any reason to give you more belief in what's going on in Tennessee. That whole offense is kind of a dumpster fire right now. But if you like Justin Hunter, this is the time to go try and just do a price check. See what he costs, because Mettenberger's skill set, if it translates to the NFL, plays right to Justin Hunter's strengths. That could end up being a beautiful relationship, especially for fantasy. So if you don't own Justin Hunter, throw out an early second round pick. See if you can pick up Justin Hunter. Toss out one of the hot names right now, one of the hot the players that are kind of setting the world on fire, and just see what they want for him. Dave, you got any input on this? Are you alive again?
I'm live again. Sorry, my connection did cut out for a second there, but I think Justin Hunter's probably the guy you probably do want to try to get. I mean, he hasn't shown anything yet. He hasn't. I mean, I know at the beginning of the season people were looking at getting him, and so far he hasn't panned out. But I think maybe the QB change over there in Tennessee will help him out. Mettenberger, though, is the rookie. We're going to see another rookie start this year. I think there's only one more left that people really want to see. But I think Mettenberger is probably not the one rookie that you expected to see this year. But I think we're going to talk more about Mettenberger later. But I think Hunter with Mettenberger might be actually a good buy right now.
A little quick aside, judging by your little banner behind you, you're a nice little Browns fan. Who would have guessed that out of all the rookie quarterbacks, Johnny Manziel would have seen the least playing time this season? Even Jimmy Garoppolo in the Chiefs game has seen more playing time than Johnny Manziel has. Who would have guessed that?
I don't think anyone would have guessed that. I think the Browns are actually doing a smart thing by not actually throwing him to the wolves right now. Hoyer pretty much has proved that he's the starter at this point. Although he did show some weaknesses last week without that as good as it has, but then again they're missing Alex Mack, so maybe in a few more weeks we will actually see Manziel and see what he could actually do and have another rookie to talk about.
Yep. And that's
not that anyone wants to talk about Manziel anymore.
Hoyer got some deep passes done in that Steelers game, but he was still only 6 for 14, so Hoyer could end up losing his job sooner rather than later. I think as long as if he can still keep getting them wins, regardless of what his stats look like, he'll keep the job. But if it looks like he might be costing them games, then I think we're going to see Manziel sooner rather than later because that Browns team is looking pretty strong.
Except for that stinker last week. But anyways, I think we're probably going to move on to the rookie spotlight right now. We're going to talk about a few rookies. I kind of want to start with Carlos Hyde, who is like Kristen Michael is another heir apparent. This time it's against Frank Gore, who many don't see coming back next year. And so far this season, I do like what I've seen out of Carlos Hyde at times. I know I had one week where he actually scored like 10 points for me, but he was sitting on my bench because I didn't start him because he was still a rookie and he's still behind Frank Gore. I think moving forward, with the 49ers, I do think that Hyde will be the heir apparent, and I know Lattimore's coming back after their bye, but for me, Lattimore does not scare me in terms of Hyde. I just don't think Lattimore is going to come back from his knee injury, as many think he might. I still think that's going to bother him, and he's not going to be the same back as he was in college.
Completely agree. I mean, Lattimore said it himself that his explosion isn't what it used to be when he was in South Carolina, and I absolutely love Hyde. Hyde was in terms of talent, he was my number 2 running back, but he also wasn't, a screw-up like Crowell was, so he was my number 1 back to draft in this class, and I think in his limited playing time, he's shown why. And this is a San Francisco team that loves to pound the rock. They're a power running team, and Carlos Hyde's going to have that job all to himself for the most part next year. And yeah, let me get a piece of that.
Now, the one thing that Carlos Hyde's probably not going to get you is in the PPR league. He's probably not going to get you those catches, but he is going to get those yards and touchdowns. That's really kind of what he's going to give you. And that's what you have to rely on. He's not going to be the Le'Veon Bell who does the rushing and the passing catches, but Carlos Hyde is going to get you the yardage and the touchdowns with the 49er rushing game.
Right, but he's also not Alfred Morris or Andre Williams, where if you throw the ball at him, he doesn't know how to handle it. He can catch the ball, but it's not his strength. So you're right. He's not going to see a Pierre Thomas 70 reception season. But I could see Carlos Hyde getting 25, 30, 35 catches in a season, and I could see him doing well with that. But you're right. He's not going to be a Charles Sims. He's not going to be a Matt Forte who's on pace for breaking 100 receptions as a running back, which is ridiculous.
Speaking of Charles Sims, that's another rookie that kind of been off that spotlight right now just because of his injury. Charles Sims is actually one of the players I actually picked out last year, saying, okay, no, you need to pick this guy up. You need to pick this guy up. I was actually this one guy in one of my leagues was in a Devy draft, and I told him last year, no, if you're looking for a running back, look at Charles Sims, and this was last year. I saw his highlights, and they're just spectacular. I mean, he's not going to be the power back like Carlos Hyde, but I think he is going to be a back to watch.
Absolutely. Sims was by far the best pass-catching back to come out of this draft, and I think his situation is deceptively perfect. Doug Martin has sucked. Bob Rainey has sucked. I think they're gonna slowly, introduce him back into the offense, let him come back from his injury, but neither of the other running backs have proven that they should be the starting running back. I think if Sims goes out there and proves anything, which if his passing, if he's involved in the passing game, he could very well be very involved in this offense. But he hasn't shown anything this year. That's why I put him down as as one of my running backs I wanted to talk about today, because he hasn't shown anything this season.
Well, he hasn't shown anything because he's been injured.
Right.
And I think when he's back from the injury, I think he'll be a good thing. And if you could get him cheap, get him cheap.
Exactly. He's off people's radars. People are making playoff pushes. They're worried about where their production's coming from right now. Whereas Charles Sims, go out. See, I bet there's 50% of your Charles Sims owners out there right now. You can get Charles Sims from them for a third-round pick. You're not going to get a Charles Sims quality player in this draft for a third-round pick, and especially not with his opportunity. Charles Sims was getting a lot of hype going into this offseason from Lovie Smith. He was getting comps to Matt Forte. And I think the biggest thing is this new management is what it chose him. They didn't get handed him like they did with Doug Martin. If Sims shows anything, he's going to get the chance to be the lead back in this offense.
Yeah, I think the Muscle Hamster is probably going to lose his job at the Sims at some point. But he might still be one of those ringback by committees, which I don't see a problem with nowadays, because that's what a lot of teams are going with right now. I mean, moving forward, I think another player we wanted to talk about in the rookie spotlight would be Dante Moncrief. What's your thoughts on that, Drew?
Moncrief was another guy I wanted to talk about this week. I skipped out on a couple of the veterans so I could talk about a bunch of the rookies that I like. Moncrief has a good chance to break out this weekend. Reggie Wayne isn't playing. Reggie Wayne's going to be out. And Hakeem Nicks has been wishy-washy at best. And that's not the word I wanted to use, but I couldn't think of it at the time, so we're going with wishy-washy. Moncrief was an explosive talent at Ole Miss, and his game has translated fairly well to the NFL, and I think he's finally going to get a real opportunity to show that this week. And I think, unfortunately, this show comes out right before Sunday's game, so you don't have a lot of time to go out there and try and get him. But if you've got the time, go out and try and get Dante Moncrief, because he could easily break out in this game, and he could jump right into that value conversation with Allen Robinson and not quite Devontae Adams, but kind of in that conversation. He could see that same kind of value jump that they saw. So get on that while it's cheap before it's way too expensive. This is a guy that's going to be, if he stays with the Colts, this is a guy that's going to be playing with Andrew Luck for the next 10 years. And let me go ahead and get Andrew Luck's number one wide receiver, because as much as Hilton's put up the stats, I still don't see him as that prototypical number one wide receiver. So
yeah, I think with Reggie Wayne, I think Moncrief does have had a chance this week to actually show that he's going to be worth owning for a while. I know, this is Saturday and tomorrow's Sunday. You're not going to have enough time to grab these players, but I think it's going to give enough time for people to actually try to get them beforehand still. Unfortunately, it's not like a Tuesday show where you can actually get further. But I think Moncrief, if you don't already own him, I think a lot of the owners are already seeing the writing on the wall with them. And it's probably going to be a little bit harder to grab than, say, a Sims, who has been off the radar for so long because he's been injured.
Right, yeah. I mean, you're not going to get Moncrief for a third-round pick, but whatever you're going to pay for him now is going to look like a steal by the week 1 of next year. So just you gotta take into consideration the future of your team when you're making some of these moves like that.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry again, I lost my connection.
All right, and our last rookie that I wanted to bring up this week was Zach Mettenberger, who he's getting the start this week for Tennessee. They're moving on from Jake Locker, and they realize that starting Clipboard Jesus is only going to get you so far. I think this could mean a lot for a lot of different players on that Tennessee offense. Obviously, I already talked about Justin Hunter. I think he could be the biggest beneficiary of this. But I think Mettenberger could easily fit in as an NFL caliber quarterback. If he hadn't torn his ACL at the end of last season, he would have been drafted a lot higher than he was. People see 6th round quarterback and they automatically dismissed it, but he wasn't a 6th round talent. He was a 6th round situation. People were, put off by his, off the field issues earlier in his career and, not knowing how he was going to come back from this torn ACL. But the fact that he's getting a start for an NFL team shows me that his draft run doesn't really mean a lot. So if you need help at quarterback, if you got garbage at your quarterback too, go pick him up off the waiver wire. Cycle that quarterback too. See what it's worth. If you have if you got deep rosters and that last roster spot is just somebody that doesn't matter, or you've got like a player that MTux has in the money league that's not even on an NFL roster right now, then go ahead and drop him. Go pick up Zach Mettenberger and see what he does. I mean, it can only help you. If he does good, then great. You have a good quality quarterback on your roster. If he does garbage, then he was a bottom of the roster player anyways. Drop him right back to the waiver wire. But a lot of people let their roster stagnate, but you need to let those last couple of roster spots rotate. Take shots on those upsides. See, take these shots to see where you can improve your team, because holding these players that aren't worth anything and aren't going to be worth anything aren't going to help your team.
I definitely need to clean out some of my rosters. Probably that one money league that you're talking about. But I think Mettenberger is one of those. I mean, it's kind of one of those wait-see kind of things. I mean, how is he going to produce? Yes, he was picked in the 6th round, but like you said, he's only 6th round due to that injury, and I think that's a lot of reasons why a lot of NFL teams did steer away from him, was that injury that he had. Early in his career, as a rookie, you kind of have to see, and it's not going to hurt you to have that in your roster just sitting there until you see what he does, unless you have such a great team that you have all your spots with all these studs, which that's never really normally the case, unless you have really, really, really fair benches where you only have like 2 spots. And you kind of do want to hold those kind of players on your roster if you can, because you don't really know how he's going to do it. You kind of want to have those players if they do break out.
But yeah, I think I've ranted a lot about Zach Mettenberger enough now, and we can move on to our next segment. And this is a new one for this week. We didn't do one last week, but we for the regular season we're going to be discussing one college player a week. This is a potential draft prospect. This is a player that's going to be going in your rookie draft. This is a player that you might want on your team next year. And we sat down, we looked at the tape, and we're going to tell you what we think. And if you disagree with us, then tough. You can go to the podcast threads and tell us why you think we're wrong. And we'd love to sit here and talk about it with you. This is what I'm talking about. This reading, conversation, talking is the exact same way. If you disagree with us, let us know. Let us know what you think is different, Let us know if you think he's a turd. Let us know if you think he should go ahead of Todd Gurley.
Discussion's always good. Discussion's always good. Just chime in, tell us what you think. Of course, you could be wrong. We could be wrong. We all could be wrong. Who knows? We kind of want to get through this so we get more discussion going, get more opinions out there, and that way we could form our own opinions and build our teams the way that we want, and maybe get some outside influence in our decisions. But at least we have a good decision based on other things, other than just saying, "Oh, I like that guy's name. Let's choose him."
I like Nebraska in general, so I'm going to draft him. But I've never watched him play. But I like Nebraska. Those are not solid decision-making decisions. Yeah, I talk too much.
Okay. Do you want to introduce the player?
All right. And I said Nebraska because the first prospect we're doing is Amir Abdullah. It's the senior running back out of Nebraska. This guy is looking to be one of the top drafted running backs out of this draft class. Couple of reasons why I chose him as our prospect for this week. The number one reason was I wanted to choose, at least early on in this, I wanted to choose seniors. I didn't want to choose players that might not declare for the draft. I'd rather pick those guys that they're going to be in the draft. I want to know so that way we're not spending our time evaluating players that aren't going to help you. But the other reason is I feel like we've all heard how good Melvin Gordon is. We've all heard how good Todd Gurley is, but we haven't. How much have you heard about Amir Abdullah? So we decided to sit down and break down his game and see what we liked about him. Dave, you want to start off with what you liked about him, what you didn't like about him?
Yes, I kind of do like the way he runs. He's not going to be that power runner through the middle, which I'll get to that later. He has nice cutting abilities, and like I said earlier when I was talking before he went to air, he reminds me a lot of another Browns player that I watched in the 80s. I'm kind of dating myself there, but one guy he did remind me a little bit of was Eric Metcalf. I'm not sure if many people are familiar with him because this, of course, he was in the 80s, and just the way he makes those cuts. Merritt makes those cuts where he just cuts and then goes, which does remind me a lot of Eric Metcalf. He's a great catcher out of the backfield, and he just knows how to run. The one downside is he's not this huge guy who's going to get you those power runs. He's probably going to hate me for saying this is a scat back. Although in this NFL days nowadays, that's probably what teams are looking for, is that scat back that could catch out of the backfield. I think a lot of teams are actually looking for that, like a Darren Sproles kind of guy who can actually catch out of the backfield, run out of the backfield. I think he is a player that you might want to look maybe in the later rounds where many people pass him up, and because they're looking for the Gurleys, they're looking for the Gordons.
Oh, looks like we have a guest.
Yes, we have a guest. Hold on, please. Give me a second here.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and continue with what Dave was saying. I absolutely loved his ability to make one cut and just go straight upfield. He doesn't feel the need to bounce it outside and try and stretch it out. He sees the hole. He has excellent vision. He'll make his cut and he'll just go upfield. I think, I'm eventually going to be able to, form whole entire sentences and talk, but like Dave said, he's not going to be a power runner. He's also not going to be a speed back. This guy does not have, 4.3 speed, but he has excellent quickness. His 40 time is not going to be great at the combine, but I'm very interested to see what his 3-cone drill is going to be, because I think his lateral agility is going to show that he's going to be very quick in the NFL. And if he's playing behind even an average offensive line that can give him a decent hole to run through, I think he's going to be one of those backs that can consistently pick up 4 or 5 yards a go. if you watch him play, I watched the 3 games I watched him were Michigan State from this year, Illinois from last year, and Southern Miss from last year. You rarely see him get tackled for a loss. Even when just the line is crashing down on him, he's able to make that cut and pick up a yard or 2. And behind a better offensive line, that yard or 2 turns into 3 or 4 or 5. That all has to do with his vision and his awareness of the field. He sees the entire field, and you can see that he's already got his next 3 or 4 steps planned out before he even makes them. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say before I continue to run my mouth.
I think he is definitely a player that you kind of want to do the research on, decide, okay, what round would you go to get him? Do you want to get him in the second round, third round, or you think maybe even the first round, maybe a late first, just in case someone else already has him on his radar as well. What round do you think he's going to be going on rookie drafts coming next year?
That's I'm not even comfortable predicting that. I wouldn't. I can't see him going later than mid-second. And that's if all the chips fall, where just these players land in excellent positions, excellent teams, and his is just an all right option. It's impossible to predict what underclassmen are going to declare. But I could easily see taking him at the end of the first round, 109, 110, and I wouldn't feel bad about it. As long as he's in a decent, given a decent opportunity to play, I think he's gonna see some production. Another big thing that surprised me was he's a senior. He's done his entire college career, but he's still only going to be 22 in week 1 of 2015. So he's still got a lot of time left to play in the NFL. He's not like Kelvin Benjamin who's already 24. You're not getting a grandpa rookie. He's still fairly young. So he's not my top running back in this class. There's still a number of guys I would draft ahead of them as running backs, but that's also because this is an extremely strong class for running backs. You're going to have Gurley, you're going to have Gordon, T.J. Yeldon, Amir. My brain is failing me right now.
Still early.
But there's a number of guys I would take
I think
over
this
him.
year. Yeah, I think this year is probably going to be a strong running back class. Like this last year was a good wide receiver class. And I think you're right. I mean, there is plenty of other running backs out there that you probably choose before him. But then again, you're going to be paying a pretty penny for this. I could see Gordon and Gurley going 1 and 2 this year, whereas last year you probably didn't see many running backs going 1 and 2 in rookie drafts, mainly because a lot of people have been staring away from picking running back. But I think Gurley and Gordon is going to change that this year. Moving forward, I think we're going to talk about a few Reddit posts that are on our sub. The first one I want to mention was from Soccer CBR 13, where basically he was offered a trade for his Ellington and Romo for Chris Ivory, Andrew Williams, and Julian Edelman. Basically, he was trying to trade Ellington just because he was short on running backs. He's like, okay, I'm short of running backs. I need to make a trade. I need more. Although the one downside was he was basically trading quality for quantity, which is never really a good thing at times, unless you get quantity, which that's never the case in these kind of trades, because you're basically trading your stud for itsy-bitsy pieces that hope you get in the playoff push, which that's what he was hoping, because he's basically he was currently 3-4, and he kind of was basically two losses away from basically his season being over, and that trade I think would have pretty much put his season over without getting anything for the future, which at that point, if your season's over, you kind of want to build for the future, and getting rid of a young stud in Ellington is not going to do anything good for you this year, nor is it good do you anything good for next year, that's kind of one of the things you need to look in Dynasty is, yeah, how's it going to be treat me this year as well as future years? And you really don't want to trade these young studs away for pieces that's going to help you this year, but not going to do anything for you next year.
I agree. I actually I saved a Reddit post that kind of goes along that same lines. The player was offered T.Y. Hilton and Kelvin Benjamin for his Julio Jones. And there was a surprising amount of people that would have taken T.Y. Hilton and Kelvin Benjamin over Julio Jones, who is arguably the #1 dynasty wide receiver right now. And according to Ryan McDowell's ADP, the midseason mocks, he was the #1 dynasty wide receiver. I heard a lot of people say, I argued that Benjamin and Hilton weren't even in my top 15 dynasty wide receivers. And people said that, they deserve to be in that conversation. Even if I make that concession that, hey, they're between top 10 and 15, why would you take, those middling pieces, these high wide receiver 2s for, the pinnacle of wide receiver 1? Julio Jones is going to do more for you on a weekly basis than either of those players will, and he's going to do it with far more consistency. This thread also reeked of, what have you done for me lately? Julio, hasn't been bringing the touchdowns. Matt Ryan has kind of, been sucking, but Hilton has been just putting up crazy numbers, and Kelvin Benjamin's getting touchdowns seemingly every week. But there's nothing to say that that's going to continue. Julio Jones is going to go back to being, to putting up 1,500 yards in a season. Kelvin Benjamin is not going to give you 1,500 yards in the season. T.Y. Hilton is not going to give you 1,500 yards in the season. Neither of them are going to give you the numbers that Julio Jones are. And I absolutely agree that if you're trading a stud, you either need to get a stud back or you need to get prospects that your evaluation has told you, hey, that player is going to be a stud. Or you're trading for first-round picks to a weak team. Like, say you're looking at a team and say, that team has a very good chance of picking up early this season. He's going to be a stud. So if you're trading for that first-round pick, I can understand that.
I can see well, maybe some people think that Ty Hilton and Kelvin Benjamin are going to be future studs. T.Y. Hilton I might actually see more than Kelvin Benjamin. I think with Kelvin Benjamin, he is the stud right now in Carolina because that's pretty much who he has to throw to. I think coming into next year, that situation might actually change, and you're not going to see as much reduction out of Kelvin Benjamin as you're going to see out of the Julio Jones, who is going to be the wide receiver in Atlanta. And that's who Atlanta's going to be focused on, whereas Kelvin Benjamin, he's just the focus now because he's the only one there who can catch. And that's questionable as is right now anyways. And you don't want to trade these little studs for these itsy-bitsy pieces that might or might not even turn out to be anything. So basically, you kind of want to hold on to your studs unless you get that really, really awesome deal that you have to take.
Right. And, I think that pretty much covers it. Was there anything else on the subreddit that you want to talk about?
That's the only 2 posts that I had set to talk about. I didn't see anything really out. Maybe save a few more for next week, and I'll go from there. I think right now it's about your round of the week.
Yep, I've decided that we're going to have a weekly segment called Drew's Rant of the Week, where I get up on my soapbox and bitch about what's bugging me this week. And this one has nothing to do with actually playing Dynasty football or playing fantasy football. It has everything to do with commentators and podcasters that I listen to and them driving me up a wall. It has everything to do with pronouncing players' names right and stop adding letters into their names so you can say it however you want. I listen to probably 8 to 10 hours of podcasts a week, and that's before I have to listen to this one again. And Martavis Bryant has been a hot topic this week because he's finally seeing the field. He's getting an opportunity, and he's taking snaps from Marcus Wheaton, so he has the opportunity to be a wide receiver too. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the fact that everyone is calling him Martavius Bryant. There's no U in Martavis Bryant. Every time I hear it, I see a little flash of red, and I want to lose my mind. It's the same thing, he's gotten better about it this year, but every Bears game that John Gruden commentated, the wide receiver's name is not Alshon Jeffries. Every time I heard it, drives me crazy. This has nothing to do with Dynasty football, but this is the only way that I get to bitch to people because my wife is sick of listening to me. So now y'all have to listen to me, bitch. But I promise next week I'm gonna come back with something that probably has a little bit more to do with Dynasty Fantasy Football.
Yeah, I think next week I'm gonna mispronounce his name just to bug you.
Oh, well then I'm gonna come to your house and poop in your driveway.
Well, I have one of those last names where people always butcher. They add letters, they take away letters, and it's for me. It's like, oh yeah, that's me.
Wow, we have actually gone through all our topics fairly quickly today because I guess Alex didn't want to show up this week, so we didn't have any of his players to talk about. So I'm gonna ad-lib something that I was listening to. I think it was the DLF podcast this week, and they brought up an interesting topic, and I kind of wanted to, have a discussion and get your feedback on it. And they were talking about where Todd Gurley would rank as a dynasty running back right now. What running backs would you take over him right now? And I kind of just wanted to see what you thought. What running backs would you take over Todd Gurley right now?
Right now, I'd still probably look at getting McCoy, Bell. Off the top of my head, that's the two I'd grab ahead of Gurley, just because they've basically shown what they could do. Gurley, I know everyone's talking about Gurley, but I think right now it's still probably going to be McCoy and Bell. I can't really think off the top of my head of any other running backs I'd take ahead of them so far.
I think you're higher on Gurley than most people are, but there were a number of people that said they would have taken Gurley over Bell, and I think that has to do with more people undervaluing Bell. But I think Gurley is going to come into the league, and he's going to be in that top 5 dynasty running back conversation. I would still take DeMarco Murray over him. Granted that the amount of carries he's getting concerns me, but until he shows that he's not destroying everything, then I'm going to go ahead and keep ranking him where he's at.
Yeah. Well, DeMarco Murray, I mean, yes, he was in the discussion for years and years, but he's always been injured here and there too. So that's one thing you have to worry about with DeMarco Murray. He's really just pumping up this year for some odd reason, which surprises a lot of people, and it surprises me, where he's not really in the discussion a lot of times and that's why off the top of my head I say McCoy and Bell. And I know this year McCoy's a little bit down, but I think McCoy will pick it up again.
Absolutely. I'm not worried about LaShawn McCoy at all. He's a beast, and when he gets a healthy O-line back, you're gonna see out of him what you've always seen out of him. Another guy that I would be hesitant to take him over Gurley, but I could see taking Gio over Gurley as well. Yeah, he's got the threat of Jeremy Hill looming over his shoulder, but besides last week being blown out by the Colts, he's shown no reason why he shouldn't be in that top 5 dynasty running back conversation. But I think the biggest thing that you should be getting out of this conversation is look at what this 101 is going to be worth this offseason. If you're already out of contention, or if you think your team wouldn't get you close enough to place in the money, start shopping around for first-round picks from somewhat weak teams. Start looking at teams' rosters that you know, they're winning despite the fact that their roster is a turd. Because things can turn around quickly. Try and, get these lottery tickets for the potential 101 because, yeah, Gurley is going to be a stud to have on your team. And if you need a running back, keep the 101. But you're going to be able to trade that 101 for whatever you want this offseason. I bet you could probably get more for it than you were able to get for the Sammy Watkins 101.
I think that's pretty much the case. I mean, you have the 1.1 pick this year. This coming up next season's rookie draft. I think that's going to be a gold pick for you to trade away, and you could probably hold it for ransom for a pretty decent catch. I think what a lot of people do. Sorry, I'm stumbling here a little. I think what a lot of people don't realize is they should be probably trading these first round picks ahead of time. I'm probably in a running to actually get Gurley too, and I have a pretty good team just because I traded some picks and actually got one team's first round pick in the 2014 rookie draft. So I actually have their 2015 first round pick in the upcoming draft. So I mean, and right now their team's not doing so well. I might actually be able to get the Gurley or the Gordon with those picks, even though I have a pretty good team. That's kind of what you want to try to do is try to get these picks early before they become good picks. Like now everyone wants, okay, Gurley, you're probably going to be more hesitant to trade away their 1.1 or what's going to be their 1.1, knowing that they could get Gurley or Gordon, what fourth. I think right now the 1.1 is going to be a pretty expensive pick to try to trade for this coming rookie draft season.
Yeah, I mean, the closer you get to draft season, the more a pick is worth in the eyes of the holder. So the more time you waste thinking about getting them is the more the price is going up. That's more time that team can get another loss and that team feels like they are in a better chance to get Gurley. And I'm all by myself again. Dave keeps leaving. This is why I have trust issues. But I think that pretty solidly covers what I wanted to go ahead and just BS about for a little while. Another thing, I figured I haven't talked about this with Dave at all, but I've been thinking about for the last couple of days. I think it's about time for us to do some mid-season startup mock drafts, and I want to do one for IDP leagues and one for just your regular start 1 QB PPR leagues. For those of you guys that are listening, you're kind of getting a sneak peek at this. If you're interested in participating in either of these, shoot me a PM, let me know, and let me get these things started up in during this next week. This is just another thing that we want to do to provide content for the subreddit so that it's not just, like the fantasy football subreddit where it's just people coming in asking questions. We want to provide content to y'all. We want to give y'all a reason to show up for, other than, hey, I've got a question that I want an answer to. So, like I said last week, if y'all have suggestions for us for the sub, for the show, content ideas, questions, comments, concerns, stuff y'all want us to talk about, stuff y'all don't want us to talk about, let us know. Let us know what we want, what we need to do better. Just give us your feedback. Even if your feedback is, hey, good job, hey, I liked this. This was something that I liked about the show. Even if something as little as that, that's, that lets us know, what we should focus on more. Because in the end, we're doing this for y'all. So just let us know what you want.
Exactly. Basically, we're here for you. We're here to create the content and hopefully encourage more content to arrive on our sub. And it's your sub as well, and we want to make sure that you notice that. And basically, I think that's probably going to end the podcast for this week. And please tune in for next week, and we'll talk about more Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, this has been the Dynasty Playbook, the Dynasty Fantasy Football subreddit's dedicated podcast. I'm Drew, your host. You can find me on Reddit at EAF_Marine. And you can find me on Twitter at DrewDotsonNFL.
And I'm David. You can find me on Reddit at mtux96 or on Twitter at DynastyDaveII. Thank you for tuning in and have a great week.
Y'all be easy.